we good to go?
All right, we are back for another episode of It Is What It Is podcast. I am your host, Cody Kelly. Look, connect with me on IG at CVMK33, YouTube page at CV Space K. I'm super excited about this episode because it is worth the conversation. Really focusing on politics today, and I really want to focus on the legalization of marijuana and just the role that it plays globally, really, not just within the United States. I have some amazing panelist guests today. I have the attorney Amanda Perkins, just amazing lawyer, just amazing professional. I have the attorney Elliot Powell. I have our returning guest. This man is blowing up on the internet. He's getting, seen him on certain news shows. I'm like, man, if I could get like Malik, I'd be all right. We have Malik Abdul. He's back with us. We also have Dr. Jonathan Shepard, who will be joining us within a couple of minutes. I'm waiting for his feed to come through so I can tap him in. But it is just a pleasure to have you all on today. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Happy to be here. Thank you for allowing us to be here. Awesome.
Look, I want to get into it. So for the most part, every state has at least discussed the legalization of marijuana and really sanctioning it, right? Illinois is just about having a license, having it for medicinal purposes. The problem is it's not legal on a federal level. So it doesn't really matter from a state's level, right? The state can enact whatever, but if it's not federally sanctioned, there's still criminality tied behind it. Waiting for Dr. Shepard, I'm gonna throw it to him for the health question, but economically, what should states focus on when it comes to the legalization of marijuana? And I'll start this off with you, Attorney Powell.
Well, just in the interest of full disclosure, and Cody, you will know this, I'm a preacher in the Church of God in Christ, and we have preached as a matter of wholeness and cleanliness and godliness against the use of alcohol for pleasure and other things such as marijuana. Now, right. Just want to put that to the side. As far as what should happen with marijuana, the thing that caught me is that it's unfairly the distributors are not being treated fairly. So there were not a number of distributors of color that were able to get these licenses. So, automatically to me, that seems that there's an element of racism even in the legalization of marijuana. Who can actually sell it? So, we got the guys on the street who have been selling it for years.
Yeah.
But now when it comes to the legalization of marijuana, the ones who, have dotted the I's and crossed the T's and done all of that, they're still having trouble getting distributorships for legalized marijuana. So there's something on the line that's not quite right. And I think that's one of the things that has to be looked at. So, I mean, that's what I would say right now.
Awesome. Dr. Shepard, I want to pitch to you and then to you, Malik, and then to you, Attorney Perkins. So had back surgery. I think it's 3 or 4 years, the anniversary. So anyway, major back surgery, had to remove part of my L5, S1, really create space for my sciatic nerve, right? So that I could function. So upon or post-surgery, I was given a lot of narcotics, right? A lot of codeine, a lot of just everything that rhymed with "ine," it seemed like, right? And I was allowed to take, 2-3 pills at once. Upon this journey, I had some, I won't say the word amazing because maybe that's appropriate, but I had a state of inebriation that really helped me.
Euphoria.
Right, euphoria. And it was euphoric. My question to you, Dr. Shepard, I'm not a medical doctor. I will not pretend to even try to talk on a subject that I have no training in. Is there, and be honest, is there remotely anything scientific when it comes to the benefits of marijuana for medicinal use?
Greetings, everyone. It's good to be with you all today. Cody has started out pretty strong here with this question. Just want to let everybody know I'm a board certified child, adolescent, adult psychiatrist. Went to medical school, University of Illinois at Chicago. Also graduated from Johns Hopkins fellowship program. So this is coming with that experience. So let me just tell you, man, first of all, again, it's good to be with the panelists who are here too. I mean, there is use for marijuana, in our society. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be using it. There wouldn't be so much debate about it. And is there a euphoria that goes along with it? Does it impact certain parts of your brain? Of course it does. Just like cocaine, just like alcohol. The issue at hand is what does it do to your brain once it gets there? And that's the problem that many physicians have, because yes, it will make you feel wonderful. In particular for marijuana, it will help numb. It can help numb some of the pain that you're going through. It can help you to relax. I was just talking with a patient literally today, and she was just talking about how she uses marijuana to forget about all of her issues and stressors. And so it does cause that numbing. But the issue, though, with marijuana is that if you're not careful, it can precipitate other disorders. And some people may not understand that there are even legal substances today that are just as lethal and even more dangerous than marijuana. I just heard Pastor Powell talking about alcohol. Alcohol is legal, but let me tell you, alcohol will kill you. Alcohol withdrawal symptoms will kill you dead. Caffeine is legal. Caffeine is one of the most addictive drugs that you will ever experience in your lifetime.
I need rehab.
Caffeine is even more addictive than tobacco. All right. So again, in our society, there are certain things that they have been made legal, right, but you have to understand how you use them and how powerful, how potent they are to your body. So hopefully I answered your question.
No, you did. I was just thinking when you said caffeine, I was like, man, I probably need rehab because I can't function without at least 2 shots of espresso or pre-workout formula or the combination of both. So, Malik, I'm gonna throw this to you. GOP strategists coming down to 2020. President Trump, let's say a Congress passes some type of bilateral legislation that enacts the federal passage. I actually looked at it today. In a House vote, the Democrats actually shot down 105-60 against the Democrats favoring the federal legalization of marijuana upon, let's say if Biden were to supplant Trump. Let's say the bill somehow gets to Trump's desk. Do you think it's wise on the GOP side to pass the federal legislation for the legalization of marijuana?
Sure it is. It is something that we all need to be looking at. I remember it was a confirmation hearing for Attorney General Barr, and he said himself that was something that he was definitely open to, the idea of a federal standard. The problem that we have, and I think you mentioned it, is that we have states doing one thing and then the federal government is stuck in another place. At some point, whether it's next year or 4 or 5 years from now, the federal government is going to eventually legalize or decriminalize marijuana. It's just going to have to happen because you have so many states. I'm here in the District of Columbia. We're one of many areas where marijuana itself is legal. We started with, it was just used for medicinal purposes, where you had to get a doctor's note to get that prescription. But now they've gotten to the point where we're now decriminalizing marijuana in the sense that you can be caught up with up to 2 ounces of marijuana on you and not be arrested. You could also grow, I think, about 6 or 7 different plants yourself. So at some point, the federal government, and I compare this to what we saw with the gay marriage debate. Everyone's for gay marriage now, but even as latest 2008 with Barack Obama was someone who did not support gay marriage. He moved that in that direction. A lot of people said that he just took the position in order to win the presidency, but overall, it's something that is going to happen. Whether or not it's a part of the package that you mentioned, I'm not sure, but I cannot see marijuana being illegal at the federal level, banned at the federal level, because we have so many different states moving in that direction. I just can't see eventually the federal government not moving in that direction. When that happens, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty positive that at some point in the near future, marijuana, even on the federal level, will be made legal.
That makes sense. Amanda, the legalization of marijuana, is this a sign of things to come? I mean, you deal with, a lot of different businesses. You've met with a lot of different high players. This shift toward narcotics, maybe that's probably improperly phrased, but this shift toward the enterprise of it all, is this a sign of things to come?
I definitely think so. I agree with Malik is saying that we're sort of on a trajectory to seeing the decriminalization and the legalization of marijuana. We need to. I think it's long overdue. One thing I do want to make sure that we clear on the air, though, is that marijuana for recreational use is illegal in Illinois, and that was as of January 1 of 2020 of this year. And I think we're far behind the curve when it comes to the conversation of drugs in this country and how we treat them. I think for so many reasons, we need to legalize or decriminalize the use of not just marijuana, but several types of drugs that are being used on the streets right now. I want to go back to something that Dr. Shepard mentioned, which is the use of alcohol, right? So we had the Prohibition era in this country, and we saw the outrage, and we also saw the black market that evolved from that. We saw the death that evolved from that. We saw the killings that evolved from that. And we decided, let's take this matter into a legal sphere. Let's start to regulate this matter. Let's start providing resources and people to help in this arena. And we also started building enterprises as well. And interestingly enough, when he says that alcohol is probably the most deadliest drug that we have legalized here, he's absolutely right. 19 million Americans are suffering from alcohol abuse in this country. And of people that suffer from some type of drug addiction, 74% of them are alcohol abusers. But we legalize alcohol, right? And we make profit off of alcohol. We don't arrest people for alcohol abuse. We do not criminalize the enterprises that create alcohol, even though, like you said, it's lethal, right? It leads to all kind of deficiencies. It leads to cancer. It leads to so many things. But we know that if people use alcohol, they're going to need help in the hospital, right? We provide them with what do you call those therapists in order to help them wean them off of alcohol use, right? I think we need to start having those kinds of conversations about other dependencies that we create in this country, including the use of cocaine. Cocaine isn't even nearly the biggest problem that we have in this country when it comes to drug abuse, but yet and still we criminalize the people that do use it. I honestly think that we need to start taking seriously this discussion and look at how other countries are doing it, right? So, for example, I think it's Portugal, right? Portugal is leading the world right now when it comes to decriminalizing and actually legalizing the use of drugs, not the creation of drugs. The use of drugs, so as to provide the people with safe houses to go to get help to wean them off of drugs, and to make sure that HIV rates are down, intravenous usage of drugs and that kind of things, that stuff is down. So since they've actually decriminalized and legalized a lot of drug use, they've actually not seen an increase in drug use. It's gone down. Here in America, regardless of where you stand politically on this issue, everything isn't about politics. Regardless of where you stand politically on this issue, you have to take a page out of the empathy book. What do people most need? People most need resources. And so I think the best way we can do that, frankly, is by trying to decriminalize this use and to put our resources toward helping people. We lose almost we lose tens of billions of dollars each year because we criminalize drug use in this country. So I just, if you ask my opinion is that we're far behind the curve. The trend needs to go into the area of decriminalization and legalization of certain drug use.
Awesome. I said this, at what point did it become a drug? So I'm kind of obviously, Elder Pal, we share the same faith, so I'm gonna agree with you 99.9% of the time, but I agree in result, not in process. So what I mean by that, like, I think if the question is, can anything be abused, and therefore at that point it becomes a drug, then that's a totally different conversation. Because in the denomination we grew up, this was all taboo and therefore no. But obesity is completely fine. Getting limbs chopped off because of diabetes is really okay.
Our church, I preached that very recently, Cody, that we have our favorite sins,
right?
Okay, alcoholism, drug addiction, adultery, those are our favorite sins. But we don't talk about gossip, and we don't talk about gluttony.
Right.
So you've got somebody whose blood sugar numbers have been reading in the 300 level, and yet they eat a whole pound cake. We don't castigate that person when they call the pastor and say, I ate a whole pound cake. My blood sugar was 350, and I ate the whole pound cake because it was just so good. We don't do that. Now, if that person had taken a fifth of whiskey,
we'd be all over
had the same medicinal results, we'd go all over them. But we wouldn't do it for the person who eats the pound cakes. So that's an area where we as a faith community have to actually increase our game and have to do something better than that. Because it's not fair to jump on one and not jump on the other one.
Hey, Cody, I just wanted to add to that. Part of it is also our understanding of what the marijuana plant is. A lot of people just don't know. When you say, marijuana, people don't realize that even we're talking about, and I know this is something that the doctor can speak to himself, what we're now saying. So we have CBDs, which are, I think, cannabinol, or I can't get the word right. But from the marijuana plant, you have two compounds, CBD, and you have THC. THC is what that high that people are looking for when they're on the streets or something like that. But there are now schools, even here in like Washington, D.C., where schools, along with the course in consultation with the doctor and the family, they're prescribing that CBD oil for some of the students to help deal with different behavioral problems and things like that. That's a natural thing, as opposed to some of the manufactured drugs that these kids have been that we've been prescribing kids. And just over the years, myself, as someone who takes anti-anxiety medication, I know that sometimes, depending on what that is, I'm stoned, not because I'm high from smoking marijuana, but because it's such a drag. It literally pulls you all the way down, and it's supposed to be good for like antidepressants. But that's something that you will also find on the THC side, depending on how much THC is in the marijuana plant. But it's a similar effect. So part of this is just understanding what marijuana is and the effect that it has on the body. But the fact that we have many people now interested in what they call the CBD gummies, a lot of people are actually taking that for stress, for anxiety, and even on our kids, that's something that kids are looking at. I know that some pediatrics don't go that route in looking at that type of resolution, that type of remedy for kids, but it is something that's out there. So at some point, we're going to have to deal with it in an honest fashion.
Awesome. That's true. Dr. Trevor, one more last comment. And look, if you catch me with a CBD gummy, can I still preach at your church? Is that a no? That's a no?
Well, I'm not the pastor of a church. So when I we'll cross that bridge.
Gotcha.
It's okay. So
that'll work. Let's take it up.
But I do want to say this though. I appreciate what Malik was stating. But again, we're people of science who are physicians. And so we're not going to prescribe anything unless there is data to prove it. And many times there is not data to prove that these different products that are coming out that may contain CBD within them actually work. Again, I'm a psychiatrist and I'm pretty well versed on what works. I will say this, though, I'm very careful on what I prescribe to my patients. And for those who are smoking marijuana, I'm very careful because what people do not realize is that if your family is predisposed to psychiatric conditions, smoking marijuana will bring out that psychiatric condition. I have taken care of so many teenagers who have had family history and that all they have smoked is marijuana, and it will produce psychotic disorders that some of them unfortunately do not come back from. I've seen it firsthand and have done it since I've been treating children and adolescents, and it is not a pretty thing. It breaks my heart. And so some people I've been, well, they probably were smoking something else. Well, they may have, but let me tell you, there's some different hybrids of the marijuana plant. And I remember some of those. Purple haze was big when I first got out here in Baltimore. Again, I've studied it because the teenagers, they'll let you know what they're doing. And so, we have to be very careful of the things. If you're taking something out there, let me say this before I turn it back over to Cody. If you're taking something out there without the express or written consent of your physician, you need to stop today, because you don't know what damage you may be doing. You don't know what is lying there in your family history that if you're taking something, it may predispose you and may bring out something that you may not be ready to deal with.
Can I say something about this too? So here's my thought about it. Until we have legalized this whole full stop, we don't have the national data that we need for marijuana and its many variations, because he's absolutely right. Like, we don't know all of the concoctions that are being made. And so when people are taking these drugs, they could just be playing Russian roulette with their lives. Because frankly, that's what's happening with cocaine use and any other, illicit drug that people are using right now. That is part of the reason why we need to dedicate resources to understand what we're dealing with and to regulate it, right? Another thing is about medicine, period. Frankly, doctors will tell you this right now. The way Tylenol affects any one person will be different from the next person. Overall, we know that it's a painkiller and so on and so forth, but you specifically, given your history and your genetic predispositions, it may affect you differently. And it's the same thing with these, medicinal uses of marijuana, right? So even if you are getting prescriptions, we have to realize that we don't know all there is to know about marijuana. And so it's so much more than a political, moral issue. This is something that we really need to take seriously, because people's lives and health, it's at risk.
It's true. Let's take it to that political stance. So this week, Joe Biden, Vice President Joe Biden, says he's going to announce his VP pick. I'll begin with you, Amanda, then Malik, because I know this, Malik, I saw you debating this earlier. This is your forte. So is Joe Biden going to pick a woman of color as his VP, or is like who's the senator from Wisconsin? Tammy, right?
Illinois.
Yeah, we're not Tammy Duckworth, but the senator from Wisconsin, I think, is another one as well.
Tammy Baldwin is from
Tammy Baldwin, yeah. Or will there be a change? Because I really feel in my heart of hearts that Kamala is going to be selected, but at the same time, I just don't know. Amanda, I'll begin with you.
I kind of want to just punt this right over to Malik, because quite frankly, I haven't the slightest clue. Half of the time I'm looking at the news, like, how did we even get here? I am so confused. I am just confused. So I don't know. I hope so. You said Kamala. That's great. Frankly, I don't even know how we got to Biden and Trump in the first place. So it would be great. It would be great to see a Black woman in the Oval Office, alongside hopefully Biden. I really don't have an opinion one way or another. If it's Kamala, if it's Susan Rice, I don't know this Tammy person. I'm going to have to Google her after this. Quite frankly, I just want somebody that's going to come with some heavy hitting policy and someone that's going to come ready with an agenda. Because quite frankly, I'm not hearing that from anybody. Right. All I see is a whole bunch of like sound bites and gut punches and stuff going on. And, look, Malik.
Malik, in your court, is this a good move?
Well, so I'll say this. I believe that at this point, the only reason that Joe Biden would pick a woman of color, well, let's say black woman, because that's what we're talking about.
Yes, please say black woman.
The only reason he would pick a black woman is that he feels so much pressure from particularly black women and pushing that. Now, one of the things that I found interesting just recently, you heard James Clyburn, the third most senior member in the House, who's from South Carolina. James Clyburn came out and said that it's not mandatory, that we shouldn't demand that Joe Biden pick a black woman, which for me is pretty ironic because it was South Carolina, that black vote that Clyburn marshaled out. He sent the troopers out to support. It were black people in South Carolina that gave Joe Biden the lift to get to where he is now. So I'm of one mind saying that it's pretty nervy for anyone, particularly James Clyburn, to tell black people you don't mandate anything, although you are responsible for Joe Biden being here where he is. That's one side. Now, from a political perspective, strategically, he does not need to pick Kamala Harris simply because Kamala Harris is from California and he's going to carry California regardless. He does not need to pick Senator Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth is from Illinois. She's from Illinois. Joe Biden is going to carry Illinois. Now, you did mention Tammy Baldwin. I know people confuse the Tammys, but Tammy Baldwin is in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. That is something that he actually should look at. But unfortunately, Tammy Baldwin, as from what I was seeing, she didn't make it at the top of that list. But if you want someone who's from a state that either candidate needs in order to win, Wisconsin, then Tammy Baldwin will surely fit that bill. And as an overture, not just to women, but she's the openly gay U.S. senator as well. So that's something that will work in her favor. Not for a lot of Christian conservatives, obviously, but that's something that will work in her favor. Susan Rice, he doesn't need to do anything. Susan Rice won't help him because he doesn't have that foreign policy. He doesn't have a deficit when it comes to foreign policy. And so when people typically look at VP picks, they look at what can that person add to the ticket that the top of the ticket doesn't have themselves. So that's how you had Biden as Barack Obama's VP. That's how you had Pence as Donald Trump's VP. I'm not sure what any of those candidates provide him as far as a heft that he needs because they can't carry states and they don't come equipped with the experience outside of Susan Rice, the experience that someone like Biden, who has over 30 or so years in Washington, he doesn't lack experience. What he lacks at this point is excitement. And who's the candidate that could probably give him that most excitement? Elizabeth Warren.
I totally agree. I was about to go there. Attorney Powell, my pick is that he'll probably need, and I hate to say this, I'm just thinking long term, right? Elizabeth Warren, only because of polling. And I feel like even though you can't trust the polls, it does at least give you a blueprint of possible expectations. I would love Senator Harris to be the VP, Val Demings to be the VP. My personal favorite is Stacey Abrams, who should be governor right now. But, Attorney Powell, I'm pitching this to you. Who is going to be Vice President Joe Biden's pick? Can we get Hillary to come out of retirement and just say, look, I'm on it. We're taking it back. What's going to happen?
Right, Alberta.
Hold on. And I think I'm 100% right. It will not be Hillary. It will not be Hillary Clinton. I have who I think it should be and who I think it will be. To me, the should be, especially if it's a woman of color, would be Susan Rice. And the reason I say that is Malik was very clear, and he made the observation that Biden does not suffer from a deficit when it comes to uh, international affairs and knowing world leaders. Well, Susan Rice knows leaders because she was the ambassador for the the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, and she was a national security advisor. Joe Biden also knows these world, but and I'm going to get real opinionated here because I think Trump has done such a horrible job when it comes to our friends and allies around the world, almost wanting to disband NATO, all of those things. It's almost going to take two people to handle this. So while Biden will be here in the United States at home, trying to deal with some problems that Trump created at home, Susan Rice, if she's vice president, can be traveling to Europe and can try to have a meeting with Angela Merkel over in Germany or some other leader who she has known before, and to try to calm the waters down and say, look, almost in the words of Gerald Ford, our long nightmare is over. And now we have a competent, sane person in the White House. So he's back home, but I'm over here. I can easily see that happening if Susan Rice is vice president. Now, who will it be? I believe the person it will be is Kamala Harris. Malik, I believe you were the one that said the thing that Biden lacks is the excitement factor. Well, Kamala can bring some excitement, okay? She's relatively young. She's an attractive woman. She's very intelligent. She carries with her a lot of the skill set that she learned when she was a prosecutor. I mean, so she's got, the only person who I know of the African-American woman who would bring more excitement is Amanda Moncada Perkins. The only problem is Amanda Moncada Perkins is not old enough yet to be vice president. She's got to wait till she's 35. So, but I think that Kamala has the ability to bring that excitement. And I think that she would be one that Vice President Biden picks. I don't want to say that she's the absolute best choice, but I think she's the one who would be selected.
Awesome. Dr. Shepard, is as we approach the election and the vice president announcement is going to be made this week, I'm expecting probably by Thursday, and it's going to become a showdown. Who do you think is that pick for Vice President Biden? Because everybody that I named isn't either qualified or not running. I'm still 2016. I'm with her. I don't know. It's still in me. But what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen by Friday? What's going on?
Oh my God! You need to be delivered, man. Come on.
I'm telling you.
Come on,
Cody. Hillary lost. Okay.
Yeah, you need to be delivered. Come on, man. Yeah. Let me tell you who might be a sleeper, who I have watched over this the 4 or 5 months of this pandemic, and she has shown her strength. And I am totally amazed, and I would love to see her. Is Gretchen, the governor of Michigan. Now, I don't know if I don't know if she has made it up to that top tier. But let me tell you, the way in which she has handled this pandemic and has governed that state, which Trump did win in 2016. He didn't win by much, but he won enough. And so, again, that would be my personal. And I know Black people out there, well, how come he gonna want somebody who is not a non-Black person? Let me tell you, I am definitely for a Black woman. Definitely for a Black woman of one who will bring excitement. But I also look at not just excitement, just not for color, but I want to make sure we have somebody who knows how to govern, who knows how to be able to handle crises. And so, So when you look at these people, Susan Rice is definitely someone who has handled the crises that were being faced during the Obama administration. Kamala Harris, the way in which she ran her presidential campaign, and again, I'm not as well versed as Malik, but it did not excite me. I mean, she had a nice soundbite, and she really went after Joe Biden. And she is the one who's closest to the Bidens because she was friends with with the Biden son, with Bo, the one that died. But from reading from what from these different articles and things like that, that she may have damaged her relationship when she went after Biden, when she was talking about the little black girl, who was on the school bus, so who knows? But that would be my personal favorite because of how she has governed. Now, again, I'm from Illinois. Tammy Duckworth, she's no punk. She will take it to, and you know what? She could generate some excitement. People just don't know her. But I remember I was living in Illinois when she ran for public office, and I will never forget just her story of how she lost both limbs while serving in the military. So there are some wonderful choices out there. I think Beat the Press even talked about Karen Bass. I saw some of her yesterday. Didn't really excite me, truthfully. But so Cody, I can't tell you who it's going to be, but I tell you, those are just some of my picks.
I just have to say this too. I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we were to discount the paramount issue at stake right now, which is the Black vote still matters, and Black issues still matter. And regardless, I don't care what your racial background is when it comes to the leadership position. Not so much. Do I want to see Black people in leadership positions? Absolutely, because we need them, and it's more than time for them to be in positions of power. In the presidency, in the vice presidency. Heck, I almost said the H word. Excuse me. Out of respect for Elder Powell, I will not say it. But we have not even, and let me just make sure I say this too. This is iced tea, so I don't want you guys thinking I'm over here drinking Jack Daniels.
I was looking out there. She was talking about alcohol.
This is iced tea. But
it is what it is.
It is what it is. Over here drinking some Jack Daniels. Anyway, so I want to highlight. I know. But I want to highlight the importance of making sure that we do have Black women, in positions of power. Let me highlight this too for us. There has not been a Black woman sitting on the U.S. Supreme Court ever. Ever. And we are in 2020. Okay. And the fact that we are sitting here speculating about whether or not a Black woman should be in the vice presidency, that to me it's no speculation whatsoever. Black women we are the most educated population in this country. And so there's and every major civil rights type event that has happened on this country has been on the heels of a Black woman, including the civil rights movement. And Black women don't get their credit for that. So I just want to highlight the importance of making sure that Black women are risen to leadership positions, because we're not in very many of them, although the fabric of this country is built upon the work of Black women. And so, I don't really care who, the vice presidency person is. I hear you about the excitement that needs to be generated. I mean, frankly, especially for young people, it's very important that young people get involved, because frankly, the non-voting demographic of this country is one of the biggest voting groups, or how can I put this, political groups. Non-voters actually make up their own political party, and they sit out because they feel like there's no representation of them in our political process. And a lot of people of color make up that demographic. A lot of young people make up that demographic. So to your point about, and then other people are deciding, should I even go to college? I can't even afford this.
That's right.
We shackle, and Cody, you and I talked about this before, but we shackle our students with debt right, around their ankles and suffocate them with that in this country. So quite frankly, I think, I don't care if it's Tammy Duckworth. I don't care if it's Kamala Harris. And by the way, her name is Kamala Harris.
Right.
Frankly, I care that they're talking about the issues that are plaguing Black America,
Right.
poor America,
Right.
that are, we need to talk about this kind of stuff.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Look, last question. I appreciate you guys. I know Malik's going to jump back on. I think he had to take care of something. We talk about those issues that are systemically facing us. Last Friday, unemployment, the add-on of $600, that benefit ended. I was watching Good Morning America today. They talked about not just businesses as a whole that have been impacted, but Black-owned businesses that basically have been annihilated, and a greater percentage of them. What is that future economic plan for the U.S.? And Amanda, I will start with you because you kind of led into this. Whoever gets it, like I said, I want Senator Harris. That's just a personal favor. I know I joke with the Hillary thing, but what is the future economic plan that the U.S. should adopt?
Whatever plan that's going to make sure that all Americans stay afloat is the plan that we need. What bothers me so much about this debate about whether, Americans need an extra $600 or not is that it's the Americans' taxpayers' dollar in the first place.
Right.
Okay. So we fund our politicians. We fund their salaries. We fund their lifestyles. We fund the corporate bailouts. We fund the Wall Street bailouts. Okay. But we can't fund the American taxpayer, and you're using our money. And get this is the most insulting process that I cannot believe. We give you our money, but we have no say on how you allocate the funds, right? You spend them how you want to spend them. So here's what's also interesting to me. I think it was McConnell or some person that's been in Senate for like forever. And that's another qualm that I had. I swear there need to be term limits. You do not need to make a career of being in politics for 30, 40, 50 years. You need to do 10 years or so and get out of there. But I don't understand. They said, well, when we sent out those relief checks to people, what ended up happening was some people actually got more money than they would have made if they were working at their jobs. Mm-hmm. So some people were making like, 70, they were getting money based upon a salary of like $70,000 a year. Right. What's amazing, and that was appalling. That was appalling to some of the senators. We can't be, giving people more money because then that's going to create this dependency. They won't go to work, and so we're essentially we're crippling people. And I think that is the absolute terrible way to look at it. No, I don't think we should be crippling people, but frankly, who's working at this time? We have so many people out of work right now, so many people that cannot put food on their home, on their houses, on their tables, and so many people that are living below the poverty line. It's going to kill you for a few weeks to make sure that these people can put food on their table until businesses start opening up again safely and can rehire them. To me, it makes no sense. And this is exactly why I go back to the empathy page, right? This is not a political issue. It should not be a political issue. It should be, what should we do to make sure that people can stay home safely, take care of their families, and then until we get our act together and make sure that we have made a country safe for our people to return to work, let's do that. Because that's what Americans need right now. No, but instead, we want to slash down the benefits taxpayers have already funded for us, and we want to make them suffer even more.
Awesome. Attorney Powell, what does that plan? How do we take care of American families during this time?
Well, I think that Amanda is dead on right. It was insulting to think that the politicians would say, oh, $600. We're not talking about a world full of money here. We're talking about $600. And that would actually hurt because some people would make they're getting more than what they would have done if they had gone to their jobs. Well, the thing is that the pandemic hit everybody, so the price up for everybody. Concerns went up for everybody, and I think that our Congress is not looking at that. At least the members that are voting against it are just not looking at that. So we're going to need some type of stimulus. And Amanda's right. This is taxpayer money to begin with. This is not Donald Trump's personal fund. This is not Mitch McConnell's personal fund.
If he
This
has
is
one.
money that was actually, yeah, if he had one. This is money that was actually paid by the taxpayers. So why not? Let's not send more weaponry out to some foreign land. Let's use some of those tax dollars to help our own people so that they can survive. I mean, it's just unthinkable almost when
Right.
I heard last Friday that the gross domestic product
Right.
was down by a third, by
Yeah, the
33%, 32.9%. The depression wasn't quite that bad. So, when if Biden gets elected, and I pray that he does, I'm just letting you know, there's a lot of issues he's going to have to deal with from January 20th of 2021 onward. There's a lot of things that he's going to have to deal with.
Dr. Shepard, economically, and then Malik, you'll end the last question posed to you from the GOP side. What should happen? Whoever gets elected or not elected, if whatever happens in November, the ending of the $600 add-on benefit. What are your thoughts?
Let's just think about it. We're about to send our children back to school. That is alarming to me. How does that even play into the economics? Because part of that stimulus package is to be able to take care of schools and make sure that they are properly funded. We have to take care of the people when it comes to healthcare. When I teach now for 2020, we as Black people have suffered a quadruple jeopardy in the year of 2020. All right. We suffered the COVID-19 pandemic. We suffered police brutality. And again, these things are not new. The pandemic was new. Healthcare disparities, number 3. And then number 4 is unemployment, economic loss. And let me tell you, even though I am the chief medical director where I am, doctors have been hit hard. And it has not left any stone unturned. I know doctors who have lost their jobs. I know doctors who are working full time and not being paid full time. I know plenty of health professionals where if we're not careful and if we do not pass something, people like myself will be burned out. People like myself will have to find some other way to continue to meet needs because our federal government has dropped the ball in making sure that we are taken care of. And so, again, I agree with what has already been said, but I just want to bring in that human factor, the empathy factor that Amanda stated, that if we don't do something, the people who are our frontline workers, they won't be there anymore. And you talking about catastrophe? People say, well, you're just trying to get us riled up. No, I'm not getting you riled up. No. My pulse is on this pretty strongly, and I know what I'm talking about. That if these frontline workers, such as myself, we have never worked at a level of intensity like this before. Now, I'm not that old, but I'm talking about folks who are 20-some years older than me. Shepard, we've never worked like this before. And so if our economy is not going to help maintain where we are, then we are in some deep trouble.
Awesome. Malik, last question, and then we'll give our sign-offs. Let's say Trump wins, right? Him and Mitch McConnell are back in full swing 2020. What do you say when the right, and like I said, and I have love for all of our political sides coming from the household that I came from. So what is that plan? What is the GOP's plan for the U.S. Economy and for American families during this pandemic?
Well, what we saw recently in this past bill, and I should start off by saying that this called when I had a power surge, so that's why I was gone for a minute. But this reminded me that I needed to start using my Mac instead of my Windows, because if I were on my Mac, I would have immediately started back up and wouldn't have to go through the Windows login. But there are many things that they're in debate now. There was an offer back as of Friday to extend the $600 for another week. Democrats said no, which is pretty much similar to what they said to the police reform bill, the Senate's police reform bill, where they agreed about 95% of the things that were in the bill, but they said no. So at some point, what's going to have to happen is that both sides are going to have to be willing to work with each other. Republicans are proposing something that's about $1 trillion, including things for money for schools, money for businesses. Democrats are looking at $3 trillion. Republicans are looking at $200 on top of your state unemployment. Democrats want the full 600. I don't know if this full 600 we're going to get the full 600, but there are many things that Republicans are doing outside of just that $600 to get us back. I mean, we experienced something that none of us had to deal with in our lifetime, which is an economic shutdown. So the question is, how do you move beyond an economic shutdown where we have places like Washington, D.C., where 25% of our businesses, 25% of our restaurants will not reopen? That's not the fault of the federal government. That's not the fault of the state government, city, or even local officials. We're dealing with something that's a global pandemic. So we're going to have to try to figure out a lot as we go along. As long as the administration is continuously focusing on help for businesses, help for schools, even in the plan that we have right now, Republicans want to focus really laser in on making sure that we don't make the same mistakes that we did the last time, where we had companies like schools and organizations like Harvard University and other businesses get these paycheck protection loans. Well, what Republicans want to do this time is to ensure that, businesses that are under 300, have under 300 employees, those are the ones that are going to get that money, as opposed to just a free-for-all, which is what we saw the last time. So there needs to be a lot of checks and balances in how we deal with this. I don't think whether you're a Democrat or Republican, no one wants people to die. No one wants to send kids to school in order for kids to die. I think that's a lot of hyperbole, and we don't have to really get into that type of hyperbolic language when we're talking about how do we restart an economy that is not the fault of a market, not the fault of regulations. It literally was a global pandemic, and our entire country shut down from that. So how do we move forward? That there are things that we can do. There are things that we can do for the business perspective, schools, all of that. But the notion that anyone is, I think whether it's Joe Biden or even if it's Donald Trump, no one is interested in not providing for people. The question is how much? 1 trillion versus 3 trillion. I think they're going to meet somewhere in the middle. Maybe we'll get about 2 trillion. But the notion that anything that Democrats want is something that is the thing that we should do, that's where I reject that. No, that's what compromise is all about.
I just have to push back on one thing that you said. First of all, this is what I think about when it comes to political, disagreements and trying to pass resolutions and bills and all of this stuff in Congress. So half of the time, you have a whole lot of stuff in a bill. And I know you probably are far more aware of this than I am, but I just know about the process in general. And a lot of stuff is getting stuck in these bills. And what I think would be a whole lot better is if we could single issue, get a resolution passed so that people can get things done instead of sticking things inside and saying, well, you didn't agree to 90%, you agreed to 90%, but you didn't agree to this other 10%. So they have to vote a certain way in order to make these concessions and those kinds of things. So I get where you're coming from. The political, the Democrats and the Republicans, that's a major issue that I have within Congress. People are dying. We don't have time to drag our feet on these issues. I don't care if it's like how much, put something out there today, and then fix it going forward. The fact of the matter is, when we passed our first round of stimulus, big businesses were eating up that fund. Eating it up. And I do think that government is heavily responsible for its response to this pandemic, because if we had done something earlier and started being responsive earlier, we wouldn't be talking about how to go back now. I really think we should be course correcting We should be trying as much as we possibly can and learning from our mistakes instead of sitting here blaming the left or the right and sitting here saying we need to come together. Yeah, we need to come together. There's no time. We don't have any other choice. People are literally dying.
Right. No, that makes sense. I totally agree with everyone's statement, Amanda, dead on. Look, I want to thank you guys again. I know you guys agreed. I know I pushed you guys over about 30 minutes. Thank you for bearing with me. You know I'm Kojic, so I will never stick to the time schedule allowed. I want to thank all of you. Where can they connect with you? Malik, what are you doing?
Well, you can find me. My name Melik, MELIK Abdul _ or both on both Instagram and Twitter, and of course Melik Abdul on Facebook. MELIK Abdul.
Awesome, Amanda. Where can they connect with you?
Most of the time, you can find me on LinkedIn. I am Amanda R. Moncada Perkins on LinkedIn. On Instagram, I don't know if you want to find me there, but I'm AR_Moncada. I have like 20 posts. That's about it. But you can also find me on Facebook, AR Moncada Perkins on Facebook as well. So LinkedIn and Facebook is the best way to reach me.
Awesome. Dr. Shepard, where can they connect with you?
Connect with me on Facebook. I do 2 weekly shows. I do a show that I produce through my company that is on Facebook Live every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking about mental health topics that relate to our current situations. Then you can find me on Saturdays, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time with a broadcast Spirit in Mind, where I'm talking about mental health issues that are affected by faith-based leaders. I should say in conjunction with the faith-based leaders. So we'll do what's called a critical collaboration, and we will look from both sides as to how to deal with those topics. And so find me there. Spelling for my name, a real shepherd. So that's how you would find me.
Dr. Shepard, how come you never had me on your show, man?
Don't try to come for me on. Don't you come for me.
I'm about to troll you. I'm about to be like, Dr. Shepard never invites me.
All right, Cody. All right. Yes, I will make sure. All right. Yeah, I got you.
All right. Attorney Powell, where can they connect with you?
Yeah. Okay. You can connect with me on Facebook. It's Elliot Powell on Facebook. And if anyone wants to email me, I am Attorney Powell, ATTORNEYPOWELL. No punctuations. Attorney Powell at yahoo.com.
Look, no punctuations. Connect with these just amazing individuals.
No
next week's episode, colorism. I have an amazing panel. We're going to deal with it, good or bad hair, whether you're dark in your hair, good or bad hair, see if I care. It's going down. We have the End of Hot Girl Summer tomorrow. I just wanted to bring it to you. Dr. Trevor, like I said, you got to give me on the show, man. But until next time, guys, I appreciate you. And thanks to the audience again. Bye.
And Cody, let me just